We inherit a map. Good grades, promotions, a certain house, tidy landmarks with a promise. We follow. Step by step, external marks begin to name us. Titles and numbers feel like identity. Habits bend toward approval. The map chooses our aims more than our values do. In the quiet that follows, another question grows. Is this the life we meant to live?
The brain rewards progress, not meaning. Small wins trigger a dopamine pulse that nudges us to chase another notch. Habits form around that pulse. Novelty amplifies it. Social signals and milestones become repeatable triggers. It's efficient, not moral. A promotion lights the same circuit as a headline, a like, a certificate. Over time the loop feels like purpose. Until it doesn't. Understanding this wiring is not blame. It's a doorway. What happens when we notice the loop?
Noticing the loop opens a window. Outside the brain, systems are designed to capture those pulses. Feeds, notifications, metrics, environments built to keep the chase alive. Choice multiplies. Attention shrinks. The result, our wanting gets outsourced. We begin competing with screens and curated lives for a finite resource. It's not just distraction. It's an economy. And like any market, it reshapes what feels urgent. So quietly, what is buying your attention?
Many wants arrive already wrapped. We call this the shadow. Parts of us, older needs, unmet stories, inherited expectations, speak through desire. A promotion promises belonging. A trophy mutes a childhood ache. A like fills a quiet seat at the table. They steer us gently, without asking. Notice the tone of your wanting. Is it yours, or an echo? Sitting with that question changes the chase.
Sitting with those echoes opens a small door. Behind it is a quieter question. What can I actually choose, here and now? Stoic practice keeps it simple. Separate the urge from the action. Name what you control, your attention, your next step, the frame you bring. Notice what you don't, outcomes, others' judgments, the past. A tiny exercise, when a craving flares, slow to one breath. Ask, what is mine to do in the next 10 minutes? A boundary, a clarifying question, a single honest sentence. Do that. Then breathe. This doesn't solve everything. It only steadies the nervous system enough to see motives clearly. With steadiness, a different aim can appear quieter, truer. What might you try first? With that steadiness, another map comes into view. Naval offers a simple lens. First, specific knowledge, the work only you can do, found where curiosity and competence meet. Second, leverage, tools that let effort scale without more hours, code, capital, media, other people. Third, time, the only non-renewable asset. He folds happiness into the same frame. Not a finish line. Presence and less craving. Freedom to choose how you spend your days.
The question changes. Not how much can I accumulate, but what work enlarges my freedom and fits the shape of who I am. It's not a prescription. It's an invitation. Which small, asymmetric lever might you try to hold differently tomorrow? Less deeply. We assume adding fixes the whole. We buy tools, stacks, plans. The whole stays the same shape. Subtraction asks a different question. What if we take something away?
Small experiments work best. Turn off one set of notifications. Cancel one recurring meeting. Pause a side project for 30 days. Clear a single drawer, then sit with the quiet it makes. What happens when decision fatigue eases? When attention isn't everywhere at once? When a single task can be finished without an audience? Subtraction isn't austerity. It's a way to let what matters be visible. It reveals the edges of our curiosity. It shows the work that actually enlarges freedom. Try one gentle removal. Then wait. Notice what arrives in the gap. Now that space has opened, we can choose differently. Not more goals. Different ones. Think of a goal as a small world. Who lives there? What weather does it invite? What work is done, quietly, day after day? 3 quick tests. Hold a proposed goal in your mind and ask, does it call me into presence, not performance? Does it let me give something away, however small? Does it teach me, even by failing? If 2 of these feel true, it's worth tending. If none do, let it sit on a shelf for later. Try one aligned goal for 30 days. Keep it modest. Notice how the itch to prove yourself softens when the work itself is enough. This is not a promise of ease. It's a different map. What would a goal look like if applause weren't the target? You planted a different kind of goal. Now tend it. Think of practices as small experiments. Not rules. Invitations. Begin with one deep block of work. 25 to 50 minutes. No notifications. Hands-on. Let the task finish itself, slowly. Add a gentle boundary, an evening shut-off for screens, or one meeting-free day. Keep it tiny. Keep it repeatable. Tend one relationship. A 5-minute check-in. Not performance. Just presence. Build a short recovery ritual. Sleep priority. A walk without a plan. A breath sequence before decisions. Notice what steadies you. Notice what phrase. Adjust the practice, not your worth. These are habits that root a life, not trophies that flood it. Try one for 30 days. See what refuses to be rushed. What asks to stay. Now step back. Practices are not quick fixes. They are the slow architecture of a life.
Day after day, small acts stitch intention to habit. Often nothing seems to change. Then a season later, the pattern reads itself differently. Meaning arrives the way weather shapes stone, patient, uneven, sometimes barely visible. Failures and detours are not erasures. They are drafts. They teach the shape of the work. Think in decades, not dashboards. Choose a few threads to follow across years, a curious project returned to, one relationship you repair, a way of resting you protect. Return to them. Repair them. Let them mutate.
This is not urgency. It is a practice of presence that tolerates time. Let your life accumulate in the margins. What would you be willing to tend for 10 years? Tending over decades asks for repair. It also asks for recovery. Rest is not a luxury. It is a practiced counterweight. A way to slow the nervous system so attention can settle. To let impulses become visible. To let desire loosen its grip.
Recovery wears many faces. Sleep kept sacred. An hour without screens. Play that has no outcome. Small evening rituals that signal the day is done. Unstructured time where nothing must be produced.
These are acts of resistance against a culture that measures worth by motion. They are soft defenses. They make sustained work possible. So start small. Defend 1 hour this week. Protect one ritual. Notice how the world changes when you stop trying to be always available. What would you refuse to give away next?
Stories we carry are quiet architectures. They shape what we defend and what we give away. After claiming a small hour of care, you begin to notice the scripts that made you surrender. Maybe it's "I must prove my worth," or "I am only as valuable as my output." These lines were learned. They arrived from parents, workplaces, headlines. To retell a life is simple in outline. First, name the story. Say it aloud. Second, ask where it came from and what need it once tried to meet. Third, draft a different sentence, one that honors you and points toward the life you want. Try it on for a week. Use it when the old impulse rises. It won't remove everything. It will change the frame. If your story began with presence, rather than proving, what would open up next? Commitments need not be grand. Small promises hold more weight over time. Choose one attention boundary, an hour after dinner without screens. Pick one deep project and protect a single weekly block for it. Name one relational ritual, a short check-in with someone who knows you. Adopt one recovery habit, 5 minutes of breath, a brief walk, sleep first. Treat them as experiments. Keep the promises low friction. Fail kindly. Restart. Notice where resistance shows up. Notice what steadies you. These are not trophies. They are ways to test a different rhythm. Over weeks, they compound. Patterns shift before outcomes. Which small promise might change how you move through a day this week? small promises stretch into structure. A nightly boundary, a weekly block, a single ritual, over months they quietly scaffold a life. Not loudly. Not all at once. Like a house built one careful repair at a time. Meaning is less a peak and more a weather pattern. Seasons pass. Some years are harvest. Some are long winters. We learn to tend what returns each spring. Failures do not cancel the work. They are part of the ledger.
Integration asks for patient attention. It wants repetition, yes, but also forgiveness. It prefers repair to spectacle. Identity shifts in small edits, choices repeated until they feel true.
Look forward without pressure. Imagine the shape of 5 years, not as a list, but as a landscape. What gentle contours might appear if you keep showing up, and then simply watch? We end where we began, with a quieter question. Not how much you can win, but what you're willing to tend. Achievement will still come. Sometimes it arrives like rain, other times like wind. The difference is this: tending asks for time, not applause. It asks for small, consistent acts that become language you understand. So choose the things you'll defend with patience, the comforts you'll repair, the people you'll show up for, the single project you'll protect from the noise. Fulfillment is less a trophy and more a garden. It asks for seasons, for weeds pulled and compost buried, for curiosity that returns each morning. What would you water tomorrow? A garden needs more than hope. It needs the same small acts, again and again.
Watering a patch. Pulling one weed. Letting a bed rest. These are not dramatic. They change the soil. They change you. Tending teaches a different time, slow, patient, attentive. You learn to notice what really responds. You learn when to let go, when to wait. So choose one tiny practice for tomorrow. A single protected hour. One honest conversation. A boundary you keep. Do it without fanfare. Do it to learn the shape of your own life.
Over seasons, those hours weave a person who rests in presence, not applause. What would happen if you kept returning, quietly, to that work? If the garden taught patience, goals teach attention. Seeds are the shape of intent. But the shape can be chosen. Ask a simple question of each goal: does this deepen my presence? Does it stretch my capacity to learn? Does it tend something beyond myself?
Say the goal aloud. Notice how it lands in the chest. If it sounds hollow, let the language change. Turn earn more into make space for choice. Turn be seen into do work I would do whether anyone watched.
A small experiment: pick one current aim. Answer those 3 questions. Then trim, rename, or keep it. Not to be perfect. To be honest. Listen for the difference. How does a goal feel when it is aligned, not chased? Now we move from intention to tending. Small practices root the new shape of a goal. They are tests, quiet, repeatable experiments. Begin with a boundary. 2 hours of focused work. No alerts. No tab switching. Let attention thicken around one task. Add a relational ritual. A weekly call with someone who reminds you of who you were before ambition got loud. Ask one simple question. Listen more than you speak. Plant a presence habit. 10 mindful breaths at midday. Notice the body. Name one small sensation. Return to the room you inhabit. Choose one deep project. Work on it for a stretch that feels generous, not frantic. Protect that time like a small garden. Treat each practice as curiosity, not proof. Watch what loosens and what stays tight. See how your chest answers. Notice, without rushing, what begins to root.
These small experiments don't announce themselves. They gather. Quietly. Over time, they stiffen into habit. They become the scaffolding for a life, not a campaign. Meaning, then, is slow architecture. Not a summit to plant a flag on. More like repairing a house as seasons pass. You patch what leaks. You let a room become usable again. You keep the lights on.
Expect contradictions. Progress and relapse. Joy and dullness. Moments that feel trivial and moments that change everything. That tension is the material of a life well made. So the question shifts. From how fast can I win, to what will I steward patiently? Choose a thread. Tend it. Return to it. See what, across years, begins to hold. And if you listen closely, you might find that what lasts is quieter than the chase. What might that be for you? Begin where the life actually is. Not at some summit, but at the edges of your day.
Try one small experiment. One deep project you protect from distraction. A hard boundary, no screens for the first hour after waking. A weekly conversation with someone who notices the shape of your days. 5 minutes of breath, seated, before you check anything. A tiny ritual to close work, a walk, a kettle, a note. Treat each as a test. Observe without judging. Does attention feel different? Does irritation surface? Does something soften? These practices are not triumphs. They are probes. They reveal what wants tending and what wants leaving. Over weeks, they gather. They change the scaffolding. Pick one. Try it. See what steadies. What asks to be kept.
Those small experiments start to look different after months. Not dramatic. Quiet accumulation. Like moss on a stone. Slow, patient work. Failures come. So do lapses. They don't erase the shape of what's growing. Meaning, lived out, is not a single summit. It's a pattern of returns. The same small practices, repeated. Conversations resumed. Projects revisited. Repairs made. Over years, these threads knot into continuity. They give the days a recognizable tone. So choose one thread to tend. Not for peak performance. For returnability. For the habit of coming back. Watch how friction thins. Notice what resists. Let some things fall away. And when you look up in 5 years, what will you find braided into the life you actually want to live? Tend the thread in time stretches. Small returns begin to mark seasons. Not dramatic seasons, quiet ones. A morning you show up. A conversation you repair. A project you reopen. Over years, those moments gather weight. Meaning, then, is less an arrival and more a weave. It tolerates paradox. It holds failures beside tenderness. It asks for patience and for curiosity about what really lasts. You will lose speed. You will gain texture. Some urgencies will fade. Others will reveal themselves as essential. Integration is not tidy. It is a slow settling of parts into one life. So keep coming back. Notice what stitches hold. Notice what unravels. And if you let it, a future will form you quietly, by habit and by care. Rest is not a reward. It is a form of rebellion against the machine of more. After the slow settling, your nervous system asks for a different tempo. It wants fewer alarms, colder screens, softer schedules. Practices can be small. Sleep with a consistent anchor. Leave an hour unplanned each day. Play without purpose. Make a tiny ritual, tea, a 10-minute stretch, a lamp you only turn on for reading. These are experiments, not rules.
Recovery loosens the urgency that kept decisions shallow. It lets you notice what really matters. It returns clarity to taste, to conversation, to work that holds you. This kind of rest changes the shape of desire. It doesn't erase ambition. It quietly redirects it. What begins to appear when you stop fueling the chase and instead tend the body that carries you?
What begins to appear is a story. Not the dramatic one you tell at parties. the quieter thread that explains why you keep running. It has a voice, a few lines, a map drawn by other people's expectations, by fear, by one bright reward that felt like proof. Notice one recurring sentence you say about yourself. Pause. Where did it come from? Who told it? What does it ask you to do now? Then try a small rewrite. Keep the facts. Add a margin of possibility. Temper the verdict with curiosity. Example, replace I must prove I'm enough with I notice I feel I must prove I'm enough. It shifts the weight. It creates space. Stories can be retold. Slowly. Not to erase the past, but to live with it differently. What does your next line sound like? A rewrite needs a promise. Not grand vows. Small promises that can be kept. Try one attention boundary, close devices after dinner, or mute notifications for 2 hours of work. Pick one deep project. Put it on the calendar. Protect a 90-minute block twice a week. Tend one relationship. A weekly check-in, an honest question, 5 minutes of listening without fixing. Add one recovery habit, a 20-minute unguided walk, a fixed bedtime, a brief breathing practice before sleep.
Call these experiments short runs. Failures are data, not verdicts. Make the promises cancelable. Make them kind. They shift the map by changing where attention lands. They teach your body a different rhythm. Which small promise will you try tomorrow? We began with a quiet question. Why does success feel empty, even when the lists are long?
Small promises answered with small changes. They shifted your attention. They taught your body a new tempo. A weekly check-in. A guarded 90-minute block. A walk without a phone. Those were not dramatic fixes. They were invitations.
Fulfillment does not arrive like a trophy. It accumulates in the margins. In the hours you protect. In the steady acts that match who you are becoming. Over years those margins widen. Patterns settle. The nervous system learns to rest. So, as the chase softens, what remains? What would happen if you stopped running long enough to see who grows in the quiet? We learned a map early. Finish school. Get the job. Climb the ladder. Check the boxes. Images, diplomas, corner offices, polished resumes, feeds full of curated wins. They taught milestones as proof. Metrics as meaning. Slowly, the map stopped being a tool. It became a script, a voice in the back of the throat. We started arranging days around other people's stamps of approval. Habits followed the story. Weekends folded into networking. Quiet hours turned into productivity blocks. This is not judgment. It is description. Notice how identity borrowed the map's language. Notice what it omitted. What did that roadmap name, and what did it quietly erase? There's a quiet engine beneath the script we learned. A small win arrives, a congratulatory email, a like, a promotion. A tiny lift. Biology notices. It tags the action as useful. The loop tightens. Try it again. Repeat. The reward system doesn't ask why you wanted it. It only remembers what worked. So momentum builds around the easiest lifts. Habits assemble themselves out of those moments. Meaning, however, is not the same thing as reinforcement. One lasts. The other wants more. This isn't failure. It's chemistry doing what it evolved to do. Knowing that softens blame. It also opens a choice. If attention trains the brain, then attention can be trained in return. But the world around us now scaffolds the loop. It hands out small wins with ruthless generosity. What happens when every signal is designed to pull us away from depth?
The world learned to monetize that loop. Apps, feeds, notifications, all engineered nudges. Bright signals in exchange for your gaze. Attention becomes a currency. It buys ads, status, brief approval. It also buys more of the same signals. Choices widen. Time fragments. The easiest rewards rise to the top. Depth quietly loses the contest. Social comparison is a mirror that's always on. It refracts success into benchmarks you didn't choose. This isn't a moral failing. It's an economy. Supply and demand, shaped to capture the smallest reflex. So the question shifts. Not just why we chase, but whose market is setting the price of our wanting. What are we lending our attention to, nightly and silently? And which desires might actually belong to us?
There is another economy inside us. Not coins or feeds, but histories. Hidden ones shaped by earlier promises, family, culture, survival. Jung called some of this the shadow, parts of you pushed into corners because they were inconvenient or unsafe. They do not disappear. They learn to ask through other doors. Achievement becomes a polite mask. Perfection, a quiet currency to buy belonging. Ambition, sometimes a rerouting of fear. These drives are not villains. They are messages. Raw, repeating, sometimes ancestral. A need for approval that echoes an old scarcity. A hunger for certainty that remembers unstable ground. Notice where your momentum feels borrowed. Where striving sounds like someone else's script. Not to shame, just to map it. Which ones are yours? And which arrived with a story you never read all the way through? There is a simple frame that steadies the noise. What you control, your choices, your attention, the stories you tell yourself. What you don't, outcomes, other people's judgments, the past. Name that line. Say it aloud if you need to. When a craving stirs, ask, is this mine to tend? Then pick one small, concrete response. Send that as your answer. A single deliberate action narrows the world. It soothes the part that panics. It also points to something else we often forget. Time, not trophies, is the resource you actually hold. What would you do differently if that were true?
There's a cleaner map here. Naval calls wealth something that works when you do not. Specific knowledge, the craft only you can offer. Leverage, tools that multiply effort, code, media, capital. Together they buy you back the scarce thing, time. But wealth alone is not the end. Happiness, he suggests, is a practice. Not a trophy, but a state you learn to return to. Less craving. More presence. Small rituals that quiet the wanting.
So, build work that frees hours. Then use those hours to practice being present. What would you do with time you could actually keep? If time is what you buy back, subtraction is how you spend it. Not scarcity as punishment. A practiced narrowing. A cleared desk. A quieter calendar. Small removals that create real space. Cancel the meeting that never matters. Remove an app that eats minutes. Say no to one obligation you've inherited. Notice the shape of the day afterward. Notice what surfaces. Subtraction is generative. Depth arrives where noise recedes. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer choices.
Try removing one thing this week. See what returns to occupy the silence. Now that you've cleared space, something will nudge forward. Not a headline. A shape. A small pull.
Rebuilding goals starts there. Choose projects that feel steady under your skin. Not only exciting in the moment. They keep you present. They invite learning. They allow contribution without selling your days. Try this quietly. Pick one goal. Ask 3 soft questions. Does this keep me awake with curiosity? Does it serve someone beyond my ego? Will I be proud of the work, even without applause? If one answer is thin, adjust. Trim the metric. Change the time frame. Or let it go. What kind of aim survives the silence?
Now that the aim is quieter, tend it. Small practices. Not programs. Experiments. Start with one routine that honors the work. A brief morning sequence. A 5-minute hold of attention before opening your devices. A weekly check-in with one person who sees you clearly. Boundaries matter more than willpower. Protect a block of time. Close a tab. Say no once. Notice how your nervous system changes. Treat these as explorer's tools. Try something. Wait. Notice. Tweak. Over months, the project moves from idea to habit to part of your rhythm. What tiny practice could meet this goal where it actually lives?
Give time to time. Small practices accrete like weather on stone. Days of tending, doubts, and ordinary losses shape who we become. Meaning doesn't burst into being. It sediments. It appears in the pattern of returning. The work is patient. It asks for presence more than productivity. Missed weeks matter less than the ache to return. Failures are not derailments but contours of a longer map. Walk toward the next season. See what the months reveal. What would your life look like if you kept this quiet course for 10 years? Rest is not an afterthought. It is a practice. It quiets the nervous system that otherwise fuels the chase. Sleep, yes. But also unstructured hours. Play that has no agenda. Small rituals that return you to your body, a slow cup of tea, a walk with no podcast, a phone left in another room. These are not indulgences. They are repairs. They redraw your baseline. Try one blank morning. No plans. No outcomes. Notice where attention relaxes, where appetite for hurry fades. What quietly returns when you stop running long enough to listen?
In the quiet that follows rest, a voice often surfaces. Not a discovery so much as an old script, familiar, worn, persuasive. We call it a story. It tells us who we are, what counts, what's safe to want. Sometimes it reads like fact, I must prove myself. Or, more will make me whole. Notice it. Name it. Sit with its tone. Pick one repeating line. Ask, softly, who wrote this? Who benefits? Who pays? Try a small rewrite. Speak a different sentence aloud. See how the body answers. You may not finish the story today, but a new first line can change the next chapter.
A new first line needs small acts to hold it. Not grand vows. Tiny promises that are easy to keep. Try one deep project, 90 days of focused work, one thing that lights curiosity, not applause. Turn off notifications for the first hour of your day. Let mornings belong to you. Choose one relationship to tend weekly. A short, honest check-in. Give yourself 10 minutes of true rest each evening. No planning. No screens. Treat these as experiments. Track what changes. Be willing to drop or tweak them. Notice how the body answers. And then, quietly ask, which promise could begin tomorrow? Treat each small promise like a seed. Plant it. Water it with attention. Do the quiet work. Over time they take form. Not suddenly. Not loudly. You begin to rearrange priorities, time, the shape of your days. Your measures shift inward. Pleasure follows differently. There will be days that feel ordinary. That's part of it. Notice the body. Notice what steadies and what drains. Keep the experiment. Let results arrive on their own pace. And when you wake tomorrow, ask softly, what could I tend today, rather than chase? You planted small promises. You tended them. Days changed, quietly.
This isn't a final victory. It's a slow reorientation. Priorities soften. Time loosens its grip. You learn to keep your attention where life actually lives, in small acts, steady presence, honest work. Let the noise fall away. Let rest be a practice. Let relationships be tended, not merchandised. Let goals answer to who you are becoming, not who you must prove. There is no finish line here. Only a path that keeps asking you to show up. What would it mean, tomorrow, to be less in pursuit and more in practice? It could look like this. One small promise. 30 minutes of unhurried work, no notifications. Or a single honest no to something that drains you. Or 10 minutes of real rest before sleep. Start there. Keep it absurdly simple. Notice how appetite and stories shift when you protect it. If you miss a day, begin again. Tending is patient. The aim is to show up, not to win. Tomorrow, choose one soft boundary. See what quiet accumulates. So we return to the quiet question. What if fulfillment isn't a trophy to add to a shelf, but the slow accrual of small acts of tending? One soft boundary, one evening of undistracted work, a single real rest. Over months, they pile up like light in a room. Becoming looks ordinary. It is less visible than applause. It asks for patience more than momentum. Not a rejection of ambition. A different orientation. Less hunting. More cultivation. Listen for what wants careful tending. What might you become if you stopped collecting and began to tend?
We inherit a map. Lines and milestones drawn by older hands. Degrees. Titles. Houses. Followers. Little beacons that say, this is progress. We learn to read it early. Family dinners. School ceremonies. Quiet comparisons at parties. The markers become shorthand for worth. Over time, the map guides more than our taste. It shapes habits, conversations, the projects we tolerate. And if the map becomes our mirror, clarity blurs. Achievement and identity fold together. So where did this map come from? The map didn't come from spirit alone. It grew inside us. Our brains run on prediction. Tiny chemicals mark what's surprising, what's useful. A win. A like. A promotion. Dopamine flags the signal. It says, pay attention. Repeat. Over time, those signals stitch habits: cue, action, reward. Achievement turns into a treadmill. Each success shifts the baseline of enough. Not a moral failing. A mechanism. Practical and blind. Knowing this eases the shame. It also opens a choice. If the loop is lighting the path, can we begin to change the path? To notice the wanting before we move?
Outside the skull, the world is designed to ask for your notice. Bright interfaces, endless feeds, curated applause, each one a tiny demand. Attention becomes a currency. It buys influence, status, and more wanting. Options multiply. Time does not. That gap bends decision-making toward the urgent, towards signals that flash loudest. We begin to measure value by interruptions. Not by depth. Not by quiet usefulness. Seeing that pattern changes the frame. It makes deliberate attention feel like a small act of resistance. What would shift if you chose where your gaze landed, and why you gave it there? Not all wanting is personal. Some desires were familiar faces, promotion, praise, the perfect post. They belonged to the shadow, parts of us we never met. A parent's voice. An old fear of not being enough. Small scripts learned as safety. They steer attention with quiet insistence. Notice when the urge feels automatic, more habit than choice. No blame. Just curiosity. If a desire is borrowed, feeding it rarely fills you. It only keeps the story running. So pause. Ask, gently, who is asking for this? And what would happen if you answered differently?
If some desires are borrowed, there's a place to stand that's yours. Stoics call it the obvious division: what you can change and what you cannot. You can shape attention. You can choose action. You can revise meaning. You cannot force outcomes. You cannot command how others feel. You cannot halt chance. When the borrowed want surges, slow down. Breathe. Ask, quietly, what is mine to do now? Pick one small, clear action that aligns with your values, not with applause. Do it because it matters to you. Notice how your nervous system shifts. Then ask, softly, what happens next if I keep this kind of choosing? That kind of choosing opens a different map. Naval names its landmarks: specific knowledge, leverage, ownership, tools that buy time, not trophies. Wealth becomes time arranged around what matters. Happiness shows up as presence, not as future applause. It is a practice. One small test: imagine an hour that is truly yours. What would you do with it? Start with subtraction. Remove one notification. Close 10 tabs. Say no to one meeting. Keep a single hour for undistracted work. Notice the relief. It's not loss. It's room. Minimalism here is a listening practice. Less lets depth arrive slowly. Try one small cut and wait. See what asks to be kept. What would you let go of first? Now that noise is quieter, we can choose differently. Rebuild goals from who you want to be, not from what looks good on a resume. Pick one project. Ask 3 quiet tests. Does it keep you present? Does it teach you something? Does it let you contribute without pretending? If 2 answers land, keep going. If not, let it go. What feels like a true yes to your daily self?
Now, make practice the proof. Choose one small experiment. A boundary, an evening without screens to close the workday. Attending a brief, honest check-in with someone you care for. Presence, a 10-minute walk with no agenda. Do them lightly. Track how you feel. Let one stick. Then ask, what shifts when tending replaces chasing?
Small experiments rarely deliver fireworks. They gather instead. Day by day, a boundary kept, a conversation tended, a walk taken. These choices layer into habits, then into a temperament. Meaning is quiet accumulation. It comes through patience, through steady, often invisible practice. Imagine listening to your life from 10 years hence. What would you notice then?
Layered practices widen into a horizon. Over years, small choices shape what we notice, what we tolerate, what we protect. Meaning is less an arrival than a conversation with time. It's patient, partial, sometimes stubborn. You won't finish it. You tend it. What questions will keep returning, gentle and insistent, as your life deepens? Meaning is tended. So is the body. Rest is not absence. It is recalibration. Sleep, small rituals, unstructured afternoons, these are acts of resistance against the market's hurry. They change what feels urgent. They loosen the grip of wanting. Begin small. Protect a margin. Notice how quiet recalibrates appetite. And then listen for what wants to return.
Listen. The things that come back are rarely trophies. They're fragments, longings, fears, small loyalties. We stitch them into a story and live inside it. Often that story was borrowed, family scripts, job titles, advertised meanings. To shift what we pursue, begin by retelling. Not a grand rewrite. A softer edit. One scene at a time. Which line in your story needs a different ending? Not overhaul. Small promises. One attention boundary, a first hour without screens. One deep project chosen for curiosity, not status. One relational practice, a brief, regular check-in with someone who matters. One daily recovery habit, 15 minutes of unstructured time. Treat them as experiments. See what loosens. Which small promise would change how you move tomorrow?
Take those small promises. See how they change the shape of a day. Not instant transformation. Small shifts accumulate. Fewer alerts. One deep project that feels like breathing. A single honest conversation. Rest that actually restores. Over time the chase softens. What remains is not less ambition, but a quieter engine, curiosity, care, presence. Notice how becoming feels different than acquiring. What might you become if you stopped proving? Look back. The trophies blur. What remains are small mornings, steady conversations, afternoons reclaimed. Becoming is not a summit. It's the patient ordering of small loyalties. Desire does not vanish, it shifts shape. You learn to place it, to steward it, not to extinguish, to let it warm what matters. What might that feel like, if you let it unfold?
After you place desire, you need to let it rest. Rest is not absence. It's a practice. Sleep, unstructured afternoons, small rituals that slow the body. They mend the nervous system. They change how wanting feels. Try one unrushed hour tomorrow. Or a brief ritual before bed. Notice what loosens. What opens when you stop chasing? When the nervous system settles, the stories we tell become clearer. They are not facts but frames. Try this: name the dominant story, its voice, and its claim about you. Now imagine a small revision. A softer stake. A new context. Retelling doesn't erase what happened. It shifts where you aim. What single phrase would you change?
Make small promises you can keep. One attention boundary, a phone-free hour each morning. One deep project, chosen for its quiet pull, not its scoreboard. One relational ritual, a weekly check-in or a shared walk. One daily recovery, 15 minutes of unstructured rest. Keep them light. Test them. Let them change you slowly. Which tiny promise could you make tomorrow?
Start small. Keep the promises light. Watch what widens when you stop answering every ping. Notice how quiet time reshapes appetite for noise. A phone-free morning feels empty at first. Then it becomes a frame. These are experiments, not final judgments. Try one for a week. See what returns. See what leaves. See what wants to be tended next.
Over years, small acts gather weight. The quiet returns, losses, the evenings you showed up anyway. Meaning isn't a trophy. It's a slow accumulation of careful attention, mistakes, repair. Let urgency loosen. Watch habits fold into story. Not everything resolves today. There is room to keep tending, and to see what patience reveals next. Slow work asks small daily acts. A return call. An honest apology. A morning cup taken without scrolling. These are not flashy. They are scaffolding. Over months they become tone, not headlines. Notice which tiny choices shift your mood. Ask what you would keep, even if no one knew.
Meaning is not a trophy. It grows like weathered wood, layer by patient layer. Years of small acts collect into a shape you recognize over time. Failures and quiet returns become part of the architecture. There is no deadline. Notice which seasons change you, and what arrives when the chasing finally softens. Meaning accumulates over years. Now rest becomes the work. Not a pause from life, but a reclamation of it. Sleep, unstructured time, small rituals, these rearrange the nervous system. They quiet the urgency that kept you running. Rest is stubborn. It resists the market of attention. Try a single unrushed hour, no goals, only presence. Notice what loosens. Notice what returns. And then, quietly, ask, what wanted this all along? When rest loosens urgency, the stories we carry come into view. They are the small scripts that send us running. Notice a memory you replay. Hear who tells it. Name the claim it makes about you. Ask, what did that version need then? What would a kinder narrator keep? Tell that scene once, slowly. Let the ending shift. See what wants to live on. Make small promises. Not vows. Experiments. Start with 4 things: a boundary for attention, 1 phone-free hour each morning. 1 deep project, chosen for its quiet pull, not applause. A relational ritual, a weekly check-in with someone you care for. A short recovery habit, 10 minutes of rest, ritualized. Keep them tiny. Iterate. See which promise stays. Which promise would you keep tonight? Make the promises. Let them shape you, quietly. Over years they rearrange priorities. Achievement still comes. It feels different, gentler, less hungry. Not a finish line. A way of tending. You learn to want less applause and more presence. It won't all resolve today. Begin with tonight's small promise and notice who you are becoming. Over years, promises accumulate into a life. Recognition may arrive, softer. You trade applause for mornings that feel aligned. The question we began with, why chasing still leaves you hollow, answers itself slowly. Fulfillment grows where tending replaces hunting. Not finished, just quieter. What happens if you stay with this one small promise?
promise needn't be heroic. Try 3 small, keepable experiments. An hour of undistracted work. 1 weekly conversation that matters. 10 minutes of quiet before sleep. Boundaries you can honor. No grand rules, just repeatable acts. Watch what settles when the chase loosens. Stay with 1-2 weeks. Then notice what returns. Which of these could you actually keep tomorrow? Start small. Tomorrow, keep 1. Notice how it feels, less urgent or tighter. Watch appetite change. Does focus lengthen? Do evenings quiet? If resistance shows, stay curious. Ask, who benefits from the hurry? No need to fix it all. Track shifts, not scores. 2 weeks is a conversation with yourself. See what the silence answers.
Now use what you learned. Choose one goal you've been chasing. Hold it like an object. Ask 3 quiet questions. Does this invite presence? Does it ask me to contribute? Will I learn in the doing? Notice which answers feel light and which tighten your chest. If tightness wins, pause. Reword the goal to fit your days, not a future accolade. Keep it small. Let the goal be a doorway, not a demand. Now, test the doorway. Choose one small practice. A morning boundary email off for 40 minutes. A daily check-in with one person. A 5-minute breath before starting work. Treat each as an experiment. Observe, not judge. Notice what steadies you. What phrase? Let the practices be anchors, not rules. See what grows. See what asks for more.
Over months, small experiments begin to fold into a shape. Not sudden. Not tidy. Meaning arrives like a slow stitch, through repeated attention, failed attempts, and the quiet work between milestones. It doesn't announce itself. It settles. If you held this rhythm for 5-10 years, what details would change? What would remain?
Those slow stitches need a soft feel to live in. Years of attention wear the edges. Sleep, unstructured afternoons, small rituals, they are not indulgence. They are the infrastructure that keeps work from becoming erosion. Rest is recovery and resistance. It clears the soil. If you learn to protect that soil, what would you choose to let grow?
Stories follow what we tend. The lines we repeat, victim, hustler, survivor become scripts. Rest cleared the ground. Now look at the narrative that's been planting your actions. Notice the scenes you replay. Small re-edits matter. Change one line. Tell a different origin. Hold a softer ending. Over time the plot shifts. Not by force. By small, faithful retellings. Try renaming a single memory. See where it leads.
If stories change by small edits, commitments are the ink. Start with 4 small promises. Guard your attention, 1 daily boundary. Choose a single deep project. Tend 1 relationship with deliberate presence. Protect 10 minutes of unstructured recovery. Treat these as experiments, not verdicts. They are gentle tests of alignment. Keep them simple. Repeat them quietly. Play them for a month. See what shifts. What small promise could you keep tomorrow? Keep them. Watch. The point is not sudden victory. It's the slow accrual of shape. Small promises tighten your boundaries. They move attention from demand toward presence. Over time, the chasing thins. What remains are choices made with steadiness, not noise. The question you started with, why success feels hollow, softens enough to hear what wants tending. What would you tend next? Now, standing back, notice the shape you've been carving. Not trophies, but habits. Not noise, but steady acts. Fulfillment is quieter. It arrives in small returns, attention kept, friendships tended, mornings owned. This isn't a finish line. It's a practice that grows patient. Let success be a lantern, not a mandate. What if you chose being over proving, day by day?
Begin with what you can steer. A quiet stoic map, your choices, your effort, your attention, yours to shape. Outcomes, reputation, the moods of others, not yours. Tending the controllable shrinks the churn. It turns chasing into craft. You wake before the market of praise. You return to work that answers you. If today were measured only by what you chose to bring, what would you bring? Naval frames success differently. Specific knowledge, work only you can do. Leverage, tools that multiply your effort. Ownership, assets that keep earning when you sleep. Time, finally, as the real currency. Happiness, he suggests, is present ease and fewer wants. These are shifts in what you trade for achievement. If time were your most guarded asset, what would you stop trading it for?
Guarding time invites subtraction. Not austerity, intention. Remove one obligation. Close one tab. Say no to one meeting. Let the gap stay empty. See what returns, calm. Focus deepens. Work feels different. Small cuts compound. Try a week of fewer inputs. Notice what wants to come forward. Which small subtraction would feel like relief? And what might it reveal? With the noise removed, something else can grow. Not a bigger list. A clearer aim. Take one goal you keep. Hold it like a pebble. Ask 3 quiet questions. Will this require me to be present? Will it let me contribute, even in a small way? Will it teach me something I want to learn? If 2 answers are yes, the goal is likely aligned. If not, let it soften. Alignment produces steady energy, not spikes. What would you place into that empty hour you just made?
Now ground that goal. Small practices become proof. A morning check-in. A boundary that protects 1 hour. A brief weekly call that keeps kindness in view. Choose one habit as an experiment. Keep it tiny. Measure feeling, not output. Tend relationships with short gestures. Return to presence with 2 deep breaths before work. Do less to notice more. See what steadies. Then wait, notice how it asks you to change. Small experiments show you what steadies. Now imagine doing them for years. Meaning is not a trophy. It is accretion, quiet returns, apologies kept, mornings kept, doors closed when needed. Growth comes in seams, failures, repairs, slow revisions. There is no sudden arrival. There is only tending, again and again. What shape might that slow tending give your life, decade by patient decade?
Decades of tending need quiet margins. Rest is not reward, it is craft. Sleep, unstructured hours, slow meals, small rituals, they rebuild the nervous system that chasing wears thin. Choosing empty time can feel radical. It steadies appetite. It lets values surface without noise. Try letting one evening be unplanned. See what returns. In the quiet you hear the story you live by. It is a voice stitched from praise, loss, and habit. It names what success looks like. Often it is older than you think. Often it is borrowed. Try this: name one scene when you felt most yourself. Ask, what does it reward? What does it cost? Sit with the answers. Notice what wants to be rewritten.
When a story changes, start with promises you can keep. Not vows. Experiments. A boundary for attention. One deep project you defend gently. A daily pause that is non-negotiable. A small ritual to tend a relationship. Make them tiny. Make them repeatable. Fail, adjust, try again. Over time, they rewire the story. Which single, modest promise might feel true enough to hold for 30 days? You try one small promise. You fail sometimes. You try again. Slowly, the edges of how you spend attention shift. Tasks feel less like trophies and more like scenes in a life. Patterns replace panic. Habits become scaffolding for presence. Over months, the story bends toward who you want to be, not what you can prove. What grows in the quiet between attempts?
Achievements stack. They shine and then cool. Becoming is quieter. It is tending a small vow until it roots. It asks less for proof. It settles attention into a handful of things that matter. Over time, the trophies fade and the shape of a life becomes clear, worn, lived, useful. What would change if you stopped proving and began tending? Start small. A single project you protect. A morning ritual you defend. A rule that keeps evenings device free. Notice the relationship gestures you repeat. Treat each as an experiment. Check if it steadies attention. Not to perform better. To feel more present. Let failure be data, not verdict. Over weeks, small tendings rearrange the shape of days. Try one. See what opens when you stop chasing and begin keeping. Meeting arrives on a timetable you didn't sign up for. Small tendings accumulate. Projects that once felt urgent mellow into practice. Failures leave a quieter residue, materials for craft. Over years, attention etches habits into character. You will not know the shape of it yet. That's part of the point. Return to the rule. Defend it gently. See what coheres over seasons. What might be different 10 years from now? If meaning unfolds over seasons, rest is the soil. It is not absence. It is recovery, nervous system work. Sleep. Unstructured hours. Play. Small rituals. Treat rest as resistance to the chase. Make it a practice. Start small. Guard one quiet hour. Notice the edges of wanting soften. Notice what returns when the noise subsides. Let that curiosity sit with you a while.
When the noise subsides, a voice remains. Not the slogans, but the story you live by. Listen. What opening line repeats? What role are you playing? Hero, fixer, witness? Names matter. Try a small edit, change one scene, rename one aim. See how posture shifts. No grand rewrite needed. Just a quieter telling. What would your next sentence be?
Keep the story small. Make one soft promise. One deep project to tend. One boundary for attention and evening, phone-free hour. One simple relational ritual, a weekly check-in. One nightly recovery, 30 minutes of unwinding before sleep. Treat them as experiments. Observe. Adjust. No overhaul. Just small truths. What one promise feels possible tonight?
Keep one promise. Tend one project. Close one evening to the phone. These are small acts. They change the interior quietly. Success stops being a stamp you chase. It becomes a climate you live in. There is no sudden fix. There is a slow turning. Stay curious. What might a year of small attentions do to your life?
Over months, pattern replaces urgency. Slow habits build a steadier interior. You begin to hear the voice that needs tending. The loud ones soften. You notice smaller desires, clearer, truer. It isn't about perfecting outcomes. It's about staying with work you can inhabit. A life less chased. More becoming. What would you try if you assumed you had time to grow? Over years, meaning is stitched, not found. Small returns. Repetitions that outlast mood. The work is patient. You meet failures and keep going. You learn to care for the thread, not the applause. A life assembled by tiny acts. Not dramatic, but deepening. So the question widens, which thread will you tend tomorrow?
A life built by small returns needs return too. Rest is not absence of work. It's an act of keeping the thread whole. Sleep, slow walks, unstructured hours, these are not rewards. They are scaffolding. When the nervous system settles, priorities thin and clarify. Creativity arrives in quieter rhythms. Try one small pause tomorrow. Let it be without agenda. Notice what shifts. What would rest ask of you?
Rest loosens the grip of old stories. When your nervous system quiets, the script you live by becomes audible. Which lines repeat? Which scenes run on autopilot? You can listen without fixing them. Narratives are not fate, they are drafts. Try rewriting one small paragraph, less scarcity, more nuance. Not to force happiness. To choose what you pay attention to. What would your next chapter name as enough? Begin with one small promise. A boundary you can keep. A single deep project. 10 minutes of unclaimed time each day. A call that matters. Not a revolution, a test. See how the world rearranges itself. What would you promise, quietly, to yourself? You made one small promise. Notice how the margins of your day breathe. Achievements stand, no longer masters. Things rearrange around attention you choose. This is not a finish line. It's a practice that changes tempo. Less chasing. More becoming. What will you tend next?
The promise was small. It changed how you orient. Days thin into clearer spaces. Success stops being a chase. It becomes a shape you inhabit slowly. There will be setbacks. There will be quiet victories. Keep tending what feels true. Notice what steadiness asks. Steadiness changes the questions. Instead of what's next, you ask what stays. Small rituals accumulate. Some ambitions fall away. Others deepen. You begin to hear the voices that mapped you. Listen. There's a history here, and a quiet invitation to choose otherwise. Now, a different map. Naval calls wealth the ability to do what you want, when you want. It starts with specific knowledge. Then leverage, tools that let one act at scale. Above all, time. Happiness, he suggests, is practice more than prize. Imagine treating time as your first asset. If time is the asset, subtraction protects it. Remove one thing. One subscription. One meeting. Let silence expand between tasks. Depth arrives when choice is thin. Try less, not as sacrifice, but as invitation.
With space comes a question: what for? Not milestones. Not applause. What do you want to spend your thin hours on? Reframe goals as invitations toward presence, craft, and honest contribution. Choose one project that fits your rhythm. Let its demands be steady, not frantic. See what steadiness does to desire. Let practice meet the project. A quiet morning ritual. A 2-hour deep work window. A boundary: no screens at dinner. A weekly conversation that isn't checking boxes. Sleep prioritized like a decision, not a reward. Treat these as experiments. See what steadiness asks of you and what it gives.
Over months, then years, small experiments accrete. Not like a ladder. Like sediment. You live through tensions, quiet failures, decisions that make sense only later. Meaning is not a trophy. It's a contour, wear, repair, return. Stay near your projects. Let them change you. Notice what endures. What wants to be tended next. Slow down. The work that lasts needs naps, margins, silence. Tending means rest as much as labor. Sleep, walks, small rituals, these are not pauses for meaning, but it's scaffolding. Give yourself empty rooms. See what rearranges when you stop arranging. And notice what returns when you return. We carry stories stitched into habits. They name us before we speak. Rest loosens the seams. In that looseness, we glimpse the plot, why we keep moving, whom we serve. Rewrite one small line. Let it sit. See what that gentle change might invite.
Make one small promise. 5 minutes of attention. One boundary. Try it for a week. Notice what loosens. If it fails, notice kindly. No overhaul. Just steady tending. What shifts if you keep one quiet promise?
Sit with what the promise revealed. Maybe it frayed. Maybe it settled. Notice small shifts, a phone left face down, a tone of voice that softened, a restless hour that no longer needed filling. These are not conclusions. They are traces. Follow one. See where it leads. Follow that trace inward. Notice the quiet shape of wanting. Some wants are borrowed, scripts, echoes, gaps we learn to fill. Imagine an attic of small voices. Listen without fixing. Which voice is really yours? Let the question sit. Hold that attic quiet. Breathe. A stoic asks a small question. What can I actually steer? Choices, attention, effort, those sit inside you. Outcomes and other people's opinions do not. Let that border soften the tug. Try tending one small, controllable thing. Notice what unravels. What opens next?
A different map. Naval names 3 levers: specific knowledge, leverage, owning your time. Wealth becomes tool, not scoreboard. Happiness is practice, presence, and fewer cravings. Notice how tending one small thing can buy that space. If you had it, what would you try?
Owning time asked a new question: what if you gave less to get more? Subtraction isn't scarcity. It's clearing space for one focus to deepen. A clean desk. An empty evening. One project you can finish. Try removing one obligation this week. See what reaches for you then. Now, with space cleared, ask different questions. Not how much you can accumulate, but what you will practice. Hold each goal to 3 quiet tests. Does it invite presence? Does it serve someone beyond you? Does it teach you something lasting? Answer honestly. See which goals keep their weight. Which will you let remain?
Now translate chosen goals into small experiments. A short morning ritual. One boundary that protects attention. A weekly conversation held without agenda. 10 minutes of eyes closed presence. Treat them as tests, not promises. Observe what steadies you. Notice what phrase. Let practice answer questions you cannot yet name. What shifts when tending, rather than chasing? These experiments live across years, not headlines. Small habits accumulate. Failures ink themselves into patience. Meaning is a long conversation with yourself. Slow returns. Keep showing up. Notice what endures. Let curiosity be the quiet metric. What will you learn if you stay?
You learn to read your rhythms. The things that once promised rush feel thin. The ones that ask for patience begin to glow. Small acts become landmarks, steady mornings, honest conversations, work that deepens. Over years, desire eases into tending. Stay. And notice what keeps returning. Now widen the lens. Life unfolds across seasons, not headlines. Small acts stack unseen, steady. Meaning grows in the margins, through errors, returnings, quiet repetition. There is no sudden fix, only slow integration. Listen. See what gathers over time.
Rest is not optional. It is an act of resistance. Sleep, empty hours, a slow meal, small rituals that return you to yourself. Let the nervous system unclench. No performance. No tally. Stay with that looseness a while. What might arrive when doing less becomes a practice?
Quiet returns us to the margins of our story. The scripts we live by are often borrowed parents, headlines, old ache. Notice one recurring scene. Name its line. Then consider how it might be told differently, softer, truer, less urgent. Not to erase the past. To leave room. What would that version ask of you next? We were taught a map of milestones, diploma, title, house, trophies. It was tidy. It promised meaning if you checked the boxes. Often it answered someone else's questions. Look for the places it rerouted you. What would you keep? What would you let go of next?
Those tidy boxes trigger tiny rewards. Inside the brain, small chemical signals mark success. Novelty, praise, progress, they loop. Repetition deepens a groove. It feels like hunger. Not a failing. A mechanism. Name it. Watch it. Shame softens when you see the pattern. What would change if you follow the signal, only to ask why? Outside the brain, a marketplace forms. Every app, headline, notification bids for our gaze. Abundant choice, scarce attention. We trade moments for moments. Comparison amplifies small rewards into louder hunger. The chase becomes engineered, not only organic. Notice the offers. Ask quietly, what deserves my attention now?
Turn inward. Not every want is yours. Some are echoes, ancestral scripts, unmet hungers, parts we left in the dark. They show up as goals, status, momentum. Name them without judgment. Listen for the feeling beneath the wanting. What surfaces if you stop and wait? Name what you can touch. Breath, attention, choice. Outcomes, others, timing, not yours. This clarity doesn't erase longing. It narrows it. Small acts gather into steadiness. Pick one modest step. Watch the ache shift. See what steadies you next.
With steadiness, ask, what truly buys freedom, more stuff, or more time? Naval names 3 levers: specific knowledge, leverage, and ownership of your time. They shift the question from applause to agency. Happiness, he says, is a quiet habit of presence, not a trophy. Notice which lever you reach for first.
Subtraction is a quiet discipline. Remove one recurring choice. Clear a shelf. Say no to one obligation. Fewer inputs let a single project deepen. Minimalism is not absence but clarity, an invitation to feel what remains. Try a small cut for a week. Notice how attention reshapes desire and what returns when noise falls away.
Now, choose projects that fit the empty space. Ask 3 quiet questions. Does this invite presence? Does it ask me to contribute? Will I learn? If the answers wobble, slow down. Let goals be magnets for who you want to become, not tickets to somewhere else. Start as an experiment. 3 small habits. A morning boundary. 1 real conversation each week. 15 minutes of undistracted work. A Sabbath hour with no screens. Treat them like seedlings, tend, observe, prune. Notice what steadies you. Notice what drains you. Which of these will teach you how to stay?
Let these small promises sit. Watch how they shape days. Some will root. Others will fall away. You'll learn rhythm. You'll see what steadies you. The work is quiet. It is slow. Not an arrival, but a direction. What might you become if chasing stopped and tending began? Pause. Notice the space that opens when chasing eases. Small promises become a contour of life. Not a finish line, a quieter identity forming. Keep tending. Let patience and attention keep company. Listen for what appears in the hush.
Over months, those small promises stack quietly. They reshape the margins of your day. Achievements matter less than the rhythms you keep. Meaning grows like moss, slow, patient, persistent. Notice the changes that arrive without fanfare. What will steady attention reveal if you stay? Slowly, priorities thin. Space arrives where distraction once lived. You measure life by presence, not trophies. There is room now to listen to small futures, to weathered joys. Let the quiet keep working. What will unfold if you give it time? With that space, goals soften. They begin to ask who you are, not what you own. Choose projects that require presence. Let alignment, not applause, mark progress. What small work will repay attention over years? Begin small. A morning ritual. 1 hour of deep, undistracted work. A clear phone boundary. A weekly meal with a friend. Treat these as experiments. Watch which ones steady you and which quietly open your days. Over months, tiny promises gather weight. They reshape days more than dramatic leaps. Notice the slow accrual. Let patience be the practice. What quiet contour does this steady tending carve in you?
Look at the life your small promises are composing. Not a trophy shelf, a shape. Quiet practices become character. Stay with that. Over years, becoming outlasts achievement. What kind of becoming do you want to keep?
Let the chase loosen. Tend the small promises. Measure less. Feel more. Over time, a life's shape answers. What arrives if you stop sprinting and begin staying? Choose one project to inhabit, not complete. Let it answer you, slowly. Notice if your wanting softens. Stay with what feels true. Watch what unfolds. Begin with tiny rituals. A morning page. A 5-minute check-in. Tell one person your boundary. Work until curiosity answers, not the clock. Notice breath. Keep the experiment open, see how life rearranges. Small rituals compound. Over years they braid into character. Meaning is gradual, patient, uneven. Failures, return, steady tending. Watch your life assemble itself, quietly, with room to breathe. What will it need next? Rest is not absence. It's revision. Sleep, quiet work, unclaimed afternoons, they repair the edges of what we build. In the spaces between tasks, priorities settle. Let a day be soft. See what returns. What might arrive if you stop running?
Rest loosens the grip of old scripts. In that softness, stories rise, small, persistent narratives about who we must be. Notice them. Which belong to you? Which were borrowed? The answers unfold, slowly. Name the story aloud. Watch it shrink. Ask where it began. Offer one small edit, a kinder ending, a different motive. Tell it once. See what shifts. Listen. Let the new sentence settle. Feel small tensions loosen. Some habits won't change overnight. Which part of you keeps the old ending? Notice that voice. Let it speak without urgency. You needn't answer yet. Stay with the curiosity. Over time, different endings begin to appear.
We learned a map. Grades, titles, visible proof, signposts for a life. They guided us well enough. And they left other rooms unopened. What rooms did they close for you? Those signposts, grades, titles, trophies, became our compass. They shaped choices until other corridors fell quiet. Later, in a pause, we realized some rooms were never opened. What might live there? Maybe a quieter longing. A skill never tried. An unlived friendship. Breathe. Lean toward those rooms. See what waits. Those rooms hold small truths. A neglected skill. A conversation left unwritten. Not a plan, but an invitation. You don't need a verdict now. Just attend. Notice the weight and the light. What would happen if you stayed a little longer? In those quiet rooms, the stories that shaped you wait. Not accusations. Only patterns, old and familiar. Watch them without judgment. Let one choice unfold, softly. Now there is space to answer differently. Not with spectacle. With one small, steady act of care. Notice what holds. Notice what quietly lets go.
Begin with what you can touch: breath, choice, small acts. Let outcomes loosen. The rest is noise. This is not resignation. It's a quiet discipline. A narrowing that frees attention. Try one small boundary tomorrow. See what shifts. Choose one gentle promise. A single boundary. One deep project to tend. A nightly 5-minute reconnection with breath. Keep it tiny. Keep it stubborn. See how the world softens around a consistent, small yes. What shifts if you simply keep showing up?
Now watch the small promises accumulate. They rearrange days into something quieter, truer. Not a finish line, a slow becoming. What might you be if you stopped chasing long enough to notice?
Those small promises become the architecture of your days. Rhythm replaces rush. Identity grows quietly, not as trophy but as practice. Pause. Notice what answers when you finally stay. Often the change is quiet. A morning without urgency. A conversation that isn't a transaction. You begin to want different things. Then, wait. See what returns in the small, slow spaces.
The habits that formed you are quieter now. Old scripts lose volume. You test a different question. What would belong to you? If applause fell away, what would you keep? Now the cultural map becomes visible. Milestones stand in neat rows. You learn to measure by them. They guided you. But their contours don't fit. You feel a small, honest doubt, curious, and unhurried. We inherit a tidy script: school, job, promotion, the trophy at the end. It guides motion, not meaning. Over time, the script feels like someone else's voice, and you notice the silence between its lines. We learned a map of milestones: diploma, job, title. It spoke quietly, steadily, so we followed. Over years, those checkpoints braided into who we thought we were. Now look at the space it left. What wants to be heard there? A quiet script settled: diploma, promotion, applause. It ordered choices and became shorthand for worth. We followed it, politely, without asking where those roads led. Imagine redrawing the map around what sustains you. What would remain of the old roads? Inside us, reward wires a small promise: newness equals worth. Success lights a brief glow. Habit stitches the glow into pursuit. It feels inevitable. What if recognition isn't the fuel we think, then what?
Look up. The world bids for your gaze. Apps, feeds, faces, each a small tug. Attention becomes currency. We trade presence for echo. If one is shaped by what watches us, what might we choose to look at instead? Look inward. Much of what pulls us is not ours but borrowed, an old wound, a praise-hungry child, an ancestral voice. Notice the shape of a want. Ask, who is asking, and why? Name the want. Then step back. Some things answer to our choice. Others do not. Breathe. Choose the next small action you can own. Notice how that steadies the pulse. What might you try first?
Try one small step. Observe without deciding. Notice the textures, tightness, relief, surprise. Hold curiosity, not judgment. Some experiments will feel thin. Others will teach you a new cadence. Let the next breath be your measure. Now, step back. Time is not a racetrack but a slow loom. Small stitches accumulate. Failures, quiet work, decades, these shape a life. Notice the pattern forming. What would you tend if you had 30 years, not 30 days?
Rest is not a gap in productivity. It's the slow repair of attention, body, and story. What would change if rest became resistance, intentional, unrushed, and quietly defended? In the silence rest affords, your life's story surfaces. Old scripts become visible. Gently, you can try telling a different version, one that fits the calm you're learning to hold.
Make one small promise. A boundary. A single, gentle habit. Treat it as an experiment. Observe quietly. Notice what shifts. Let curiosity point to the next step. Keep that small experiment alive. Return gently. Track friction and tenderness. Let rhythms form around the promise. Some days barely change. Other days the world tilts. Notice. And wait for what shifts next.
Over years, small changes compound. A life stitched quietly, failures, returns, patient tending. Meaning is less a summit than slow weathering. Sit with that. See what wants steadying. Notice the seams. Small returns. Unfinished letters. A plant needing light. The quiet work that keeps you steady, often invisible to any scoreboard. What would steadiness ask of you if you listened?